In this video, we're going to be doing front brakes on a 2011 Honda Odyssey. All right, we're going to remove the wheel. We're going to use a 22mm socket. All right, we're going to remove our caliper, our two 14mm bolts. So now we're going to try and move our caliper away from the brake pads. Sometimes back and forth, top and bottom, you can wiggle it off. Sometimes use a pry bar, help you move that off. What you're going to want to have handy right about now is a hanger or some sort of device to hang your caliper out of the way and keep stress off of the brake line. Okay, we're just going to rotate it backwards. We have a hanger here on our strut. We'll just hang that up top, just like that. Okay, now we can take our brake hardware off. And now we can take our pads off. Now holding our caliper bracket in place are two 19mm bolts. We're going to break those free now. At this point, we can go ahead and remove our caliper bracket. All right, now we can remove our rotor. We don't have any screws in place here, so we should be able to give it a little jostle back and forth and pull this guy straight off. All right, so we're just going to clean up our hub bearing surface a little bit. Looks like somebody's been here before us, but we still have a little residual rust here that we're going to clean up with a wire brush. We're going to use a wire brush. We're also going to use some brake clean and an absorbent pad to pick up any of the spill. Now we can put the rotor on. We're going to put it on backwards. And we're going to use some brake clean and a rag to remove any shipping greases, oils, or residues that happen to be on the surface. If you want to, you can put a lug nut on here to stop it from popping off and landing on your feet. We're not pushing very hard, so we're not too worried about it moving. And we'll flip it over and do the same thing on the other side. Okay, so what we're going to do now is take off our rotor, set that aside in a nice grease-free spot. We're going to make sure our hub surface here is dry and clear of any debris. All right, we'll just spray some anti-seize on our hub surface. Okay, so now we can install our rotor. In this specific application, we had a screw here, but it actually broke off long before we got to the vehicle. If you do have your screw to replace, go ahead and do that now. Okay, so we have our caliper bracket here. We're going to clean up our caliper bracket, put some new hardware in it, and re-grease our pins. To start, we're going to pull our pins out of the bracket itself. We're going to try and pull them forward, pull our rubber boot backwards, pull our pins right out. These are actually in great shape. All right, what we're going to do now is take off our hardware. Just pop these right out. We can discard these. Our new brake pads come with new hardware. Okay, what we're going to do is clean inside here where our hardware goes, top and bottom. And we're going to re-grease where our caliper pins go. We're going to clean up in here where our hardware goes. We're just going to use not a sanding disc, but an abrasive disc. It'll just take off rust. It won't take off any metal. Okay, from here, once you're satisfied with the amount of cleaning you've done, where your hardware is going to go, we're going to lightly coat it with some grease. Everywhere that the metal hardware is going to sit. This will help stop corrosion. Okay, now once we get to this point here, we're going to reinstall or install our new brake hardware. Drop that into position, push down. Okay. Now from here, our pins are in great shape. No rust, no corrosion anywhere along this pin. Looks like somebody before us went through the trouble of doing what we're going to do right now and just put a light coat of grease all the way up to where the boot seats on these pins. Just a light coat. This is actually too much, so we'll take some of this off. Okay. So we can push our pins into place. What we want to do is seat them all the way in. Let them come out, all the way in, let them come out, and any residual grease around the top where the rubber boot seats, we just want to wipe that clean. And then just give them a couple of pushes, and you're all set to bring this into the car. We can put our caliper bracket back in place. And reinstall our two caliper bracket bolts. All right, so now we can install our brake pads. We're going to put the squeal indicator on the back side. Okay, once you have your brake pads installed, go ahead and give them a good squeeze together. You can put our hardware on our pads. So now what we're going to do, because we have new brake pads on there, is we're going to compress our pistons to fit around our new brake pads. We're just going to use a compression tool here and an old brake pad to take up some room. And we're just going to squeeze our pistons back. Okay, once we've bottomed out our pistons, we can go ahead and release this. And take it out. Now that we have our caliper compressed, we can now put it onto our new pads and into position. You may have to squeeze your guide pins in slightly, top and bottom. Now we can install our caliper bolts. All right, now that we have our bolts in and snugged up, we can come back and torque everything down. We're going to torque down our caliper bolts here, top and bottom, to 100 foot-pounds. And we're going to torque the caliper bolts to 27 foot-pounds. And now at this point, you'd want to go into the car and pump up your brakes. Make sure you have a nice firm pedal. If everything seems good, then go ahead and move on. Okay, now that we have our lug nuts snugged up and we have the vehicle down on the ground with some weight on the suspension, we're going to torque our lug nuts to 94 foot-pounds in a crisscross pattern.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.